what really matters when it comes to animal nutrition?
Is that the first question is, what's your crude protein? Well, you know what? That's really not the question. Question is, what is your cow absorbing? Probably not much. And what do they do at feedlots? They feed them crap and corn. Chickens, they feed the chicken crap to the cows. And so it's really about what you absorb. So our motto was always, it's not what you eat, it's what you absorb. And then my scientist said to me, he said, you know what? You're lying to your customers. I said, why is that? I don't lie to my customers. He said, no. He said, it is what you eat. And then it's how you absorb it.
And how do we help those animals be able to absorb everything that we are putting in front of them?
Intact's actually a medical term. It means that your body's intact. So when I go give speeches for the different health food stores that handle our product or anybody, I'll talk to them about it and say, you know what? All that stuff in your store, none of it will work unless your body's intact. And what does that mean? Everything's processing properly. I mean, can you imagine going to a slaughterhouse and they can't sell the livers of the cows for even dog food? That's a shame.
All that and more on this episode 510 of the Working Cows Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows Podcast. I'm going to share with you today a conversation that I had with Marc Walther and Trey Schmidt, and we talked to them about the way that they're taking some byproducts from other agricultural sectors and turning them into beneficial, nutrient-dense supplements for cattle, feed for cattle, and seems like an option, a low-cost option maybe, to get some more nutrients into the animals, up their absorption, as we talked about there in the cold open, and some other things. So I'm just learning about it, as with most things on the Working Cows Podcast. I'm just learning about it along with you, and I'm looking forward to sharing this conversation with you right now. Marc, Trey, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows Podcast.
It's our pleasure.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Yeah. So appreciate you guys taking the time to join me. A Patreon supporter reached out and said, hey, I think you should talk to these guys about what they're doing. And as I kind of have a real limited understanding of what you guys are up to, but from my understanding, taking a waste product, turning it into a feed additive or supplement that is helping kind of improve the bottom line for ranchers and farmers in different parts of the country. So is that anywhere near the ballpark of what you guys are up to?
Yeah, it is. It is. In fact, and I have traveled to India together, probably going to make a trip to Vietnam pretty soon. And we've got distributors in a lot of places. We have a footprint that is unlike anything in the world. And we can depolymerize and degrade lignin, which is the largest source out of besides crustacea, for protein. And so I developed a system, because I've owned companies all over North America, but this one was unique in that the last part of my career, whatever the Lord gives me, I came down here to Louisiana, to a little town that is literally south of New Orleans, if you could believe it, and developed a process that is unique to the world, that is an ancient formula that goes back thousands of years. And I've just turbocharged it in modern day terms. And I use things like mastic, which is something that's been used by doctors, so-called doctors, for years for gum disease and all kinds of things. And I use also things like carob, which is used in chocolate. And the biggest user of carob is Hershey's chocolate. But I found that when I added it for protein sources, and I seemed to fall into crap and come out with a suit on, it added some other chemicals or ingredients, phytochemicals that we needed for the product. And then I have a machine that I developed from a double ram press, and it literally has a technology that happens inside, and it goes from 146 degrees. In fact, if you ever felt bagasse, you put your arm in bagasse, it's so hot you got to pull it out. You feel like your arm's burning. And then when I processed it through my second step, it ends up at about 146 degrees. And then when I run it through the machine, and this really blew the minds of the colleges when they came to see the place, it steams and everything else and comes out in a 2,200-pound bale at 88 degrees. And then it turns around after about a day and goes back to ambient temperature. So what does that do? That gives us something that that animals can eat, because animals don't like bagasse. They won't eat it. Trey, they'll walk around it. And so it is something that we'll tell you about that has done phenomenal things. And we've been working together for probably at least 10 years. And I had a full head of hair back then. And yeah, so here's where we're at now. You can feed your cow, and all of your people that are watching that have cattle realize how expensive that is for many ways. But you can feed your cow for about 41 cents a day, and that's incredible. But that's not really the incredible thing. The most incredible thing is there's no smell, and there is no flies. Can you imagine that? Cows and no flies? And tell them, Trey, do you have flies in your cows?
No, it is one of those really fun things when people come out here, because we have one of the test ranches, when they want to look at the product or see the cows and things. They come out, and most of the time I'll just have them like close their eyes, and I'll go right in the middle of where we feed every day. So you can see the cow tracks, and they get fed there. We rotate them out like, every 6-9 months, and then, plant some there, because then that turns into real fertile ground. Because, when animals get together, they stomp, they create waste, and that's nice, plentiful ground. But you would think that would smell because, you have those animals there all the time, every day when they're eating. But a lot of times I'll just have them close their eyes, and I'll pull out in the middle of the field, and I'll just ask them a couple questions and ask them if they smell anything. Most times like no, or they'll say, no, I smell, dirt or ground or, whatever, where are we at? And I'll tell them, open your eyes. And you look around, it's like, oh, these are all the cement troughs. This is where all the ground is. And this is where we feed every day. No, it really does make an incredible difference on the smell. And then when you come in and there's no flies, it makes a huge difference, because the animals aren't wasting so much time trying to flick them off. And they'll develop these nice, big, healthy coats. And so they'll start getting this shine. And so I think that's another part of it. It gets the flies away, and it brings in they just feel healthy. They look healthy. Like you see them jumping around, and there's more than a couple stories of the cows being a little bit more feisty than you might want them to be at certain times. But, those, especially the young ones, they're just bouncing around the field. It's like, hey, would y'all please go over there? Kind of calm down. But, have all juveniles bouncing around and jumping and stuff. So it's fun. But yeah, the smell reduction and the flies, it really does lead to a much healthier, happier cow.
It's good when cows feel good and have energy, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of beef and that's the kind of products that you actually want to eat, is when you have cows that are actually running around, maybe not in their natural environment, but you are giving them the best that you possibly can. You're not, even when you're looking to save money, you're actually looking to increase the health of your herd, because when your animals are better, your bottom line is actually better. So
if you've got, if you mix it with cracked corn, and, we were talking earlier before we came on about corn being a genetically modified product. It's not the same corn that we had when we were kids. And you can tell when a human eats corn, it's not the same product. So, but when you mix it with the cracked corn, not whole corn, but cracked corn, it actually balances the fructose and the glucose in the corn. So it gives you a balanced product. So for instance, right now they'll put in 85% SGP plus is what we call the product, and then put in about 15% cracked corn. We've tried other things like BDG, doesn't work. You don't get weight gain, but you get very good weight gain. And again, it lowers your cost down in the 40 cents range. And, that's almost unheard of. And then we also found that the milk bags were twice the size. And we have a great scientist in science department. And it is, we found that there's a portion that is in after we mix it that it mimics the hormone that makes a heifer lactate. So what you're going to find is that the milk bags are twice as big. So when I talk to people about in dairy, I'll say, tell you what, if I could come in and I could double your milk production and increase your cream, and we could talk about that, and I could do that without adding one cow, would that be worth it to you? Well, anybody that's in business, I don't care what you're selling or what you're making, that makes sense. So, for instance, when you feed your cow, you don't have to give them minerals. I've got 72 ionic minerals and trace minerals that are in the product now. I've got mastic oil. So I mix oil and water. And they tell you, remember in high school, they told you oil and water doesn't mix? It does. And I can do it. The other thing is that you don't have to have the minerals. You find that you have less vet bills?
Really, we don't have much in the way of vet bills, especially the way we run our operation. A lot of times we're just taking a lot of the cows that are really in poor quality, like 1s and 2s, and we put them on the product, beef them up, and then ship them out. Or there's some of the longer term ones that we hold. But a lot of times the ones that we get, we're moving them in and out much faster. So, and that does alleviate a lot of our vet bills because, we just don't have to deal with that part of it. And what we've seen, it really works out our operation much better. When you're spending time and money on vet bills, you're really looking for any way to avoid it.
Do your calves wean faster?
Well, you would be surprised. Some of them, yes, they definitely can. But sometimes because they have such big milk bags and some of the mama cows, they're very generous. There's some of our long-term cows that you got to knock the calf off the mom all the time because it's like, what are you doing? The calf is the same size as the cow and you're still letting it suck. It's like, but then you see its milk bag. It's like, well, I guess maybe I understand. But, it is good too because some of those moms will take on some of the other calves just in case. They're like, when we ship other ones in and out, there are some nurse moms out there that are willing to take some of the other calves on. So sometimes it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But we have a bunch of different ones out there. Like I said, there's some of them we just let run wild. They're almost like really nice big pets that are lawnmowers.
You're also finding that the cow pies, which USDA says a number 3 cow pie is your perfect cow pie. And the cow pies will go to a number 3 cow pie pretty quick. And so what you're trying with our product line, the SGP Plus product line, is something that it doesn't take months. In fact, the best way to do it is take them off the product. And what did you find, Trey? That was like 16 days it took for them to start getting flies and smell back?
Yeah, it doesn't take long. And one of the other benefits that you see when you start talking about the cow pies and things, so probably like a lot of ranchers know this. So when you have one of the big major communal fields and, it'll just get cow pies all over it. So before a good rain, we'll just take one of the tractors and put a rake on it and rake it back down. A good rain comes and it's like nothing ever happened. The field comes up. It's like, especially in the spring, it's bright green. But we did that before the rain, or right here in Texas, we had that big snowstorm. We sled on that thing for days. There was no cow pies anywhere. But yes, when you do start to take them off the product, they have that whole digestive system that changes. It takes, 16 days to start noticing stuff. And then you get into the weeks and then you get those communal fields and you'll go to drag them. And then sometimes you'll see, okay, you got some problems. You got some cow pies that are hard. They're not going down the ground. It's like, okay, what are we doing here? Now we need to take a step back and adjust what we're doing. So, but then, there has been times that we need to take some of them off just for the scientific part of it to see what ration's going to work better. And is this like DDG is going to work better, crack corn, and, just playing around with different stuff. So, there's a lot of stuff like that you notice. It's really hard to, quantify or see it unless you're just here.
We also find that the amount of water that your cow requires is about 30% less. In fact, if you look on Synergy, you'll see, or Twitter, excuse me, look on Twitter, you'll find we put a report up yesterday. So it's Impact Fusion I. So at Impact Fusion I. put a report on the results of the test ranch that we have in Oklahoma. And I think you'll find it amazing, but the numbers are there. The guy that runs that is actually has been from Australia to and a couple of places in the United States, and he runs his own ranch. And again, you'll find the numbers are phenomenal. Now, Trey's numbers are going to come out in 2 days on X, and again, you'll find them to be consistent with what they're finding in Oklahoma. The one thing that I like is that I'm pretty common sense type of guy, and what I find is that you measure input and you measure output. I don't care if you're manufacturing in a plant, manufacturing steel parts, or you got cattle, but what goes in and what comes out tells you everything going on. And so what I like is that both ranches, in fact, 3 ranches that we tested at originally, they make grass as part of their feed. So you're not going to keep the cows away from the grass. But then again, if they eat grass that contain fertilizers that are made from oil-based fertilizers, it's not healthy for them. So uh, with that, you'll find in those test results or those numbers, you're going to see those are grass-fed and SGP plus fed. So they'll gain weight faster. They'll gain it at a lower cost. One guy that he just sold off his herd in Louisiana here, he said, Mark, I think I'm going to get out of the business. I said, how come? He said, I can't make money. I'm at $350 a head. And his cows were eating grass, but then, they start eating grass and it comes out the back end like a hose. And I said, well, tell you what, why don't you take what you're mixing? And he was mixing pellets at that time, soy pellets. And I mixed it for him, and he took his cost down to 41 cents. And it didn't take months. It just took, I think, a month. And there was nights that I was out there helping him feed. In fact, I go out to, just to learn, I go out to Trey's family's ranch and do the same thing. So that's what I like about it. You can't tell him, stay away from the grass. It just doesn't happen. So the smaller your ranch is, most of the ranches that are at 100 head are going to have a tough time staying in business. They're just the cost of feed is incredibly high, and I think that's where we help you because we can take something that is, you go down to Louisiana, there's mountains of sugarcane. In fact, the factory I have is an old sugarcane factory. You've got about 75 acres and probably about 100,000 square foot in the plant, and that used to be. We've even got a bagasse pile that you could still see from a satellite, and it is so huge, and they don't know how to get rid of it. Landfills don't want it because it doesn't break down, but we break it down. And that's the neat thing about it. So Trey and I went out to India, and in India, they don't have any equipment to harvest sugarcane. It's all done by hand. And they got villages, that's all they do. And when they're done harvesting the crop of sugarcane, which takes 9 months, then they go do bananas, which are highly poisonous with snakes and spiders. So here's what we found. We found that in India, they worry about cream. It's all about the cream, not about the volume of milk, And I was talking to them over in India, and I said, we'll make any volume you want. We'll make it anything you want. You want soy milk, you want any kind of milk, we'll make it for you in volume. But over there with cream, what I did was I said, send me pictures of what your cow pie looks like now. And then send me pictures of what it looks like in 15 days. And they did. And you can see it on our website. You go to knowledge base at impactfusionbrands.com and go to knowledge base and then go down to studies. And you'll see the pictures of what I'm talking about. And other things like cow pies, a whole lot. We probably got about 1,000 pages of that our science department has produced for us. So here's what I saw. There's a cow pie. The first cow pie they showed me is the one they get before they started feeding our product. And it looked like a plop of sand. And what is that? It's protein powder. It goes in one end, out the other. They're wasting their money. And then after 15 days, it came out as a number 3, and it was brown. You'll see that too. So what's going on? You must be digesting it. Secondly, that the cream to start was at 3.6. And within 15 days, it was at 8.6. And we didn't have enough to run a long enough trial, but I imagine the cream would go right through the roof. So it is an incredible technology. It's worth trying. It's cost effective. We also find that there's a correlation. We actually have a garden, both up at Southern University. In fact, in Louisiana had through the House and the Senate, they voted our technology percent that they would back our technology through Southern University. And we've been doing that for years. So they have a garden, they have a cattle, they have everything you could think of. And their whole idea is to develop the technology around sugarcane. In fact, my scientist and I are on that board. So with that saying, what we're finding is that the correlation between agriculture and humans are incredibly the same all the way through the animals. We've been so pointed towards nitrogen and done by oil, and what we're finding is that when you use our product called Supreme AG for your gardens and for your crops, it gives you all the minerals you need. Because keep in mind, whether you're um, animal, or ground, we all have that same 72 ionic minerals. It's what God gave us. And they have um, the minor minerals and the main minerals. And if you don't have that, your electrical system is shot. Nothing works. So one of the charts that the scientists made up for me was in fact, it's in our white papers. It shows all of these mechanisms and circles and so forth that are chemical reactions that go on in your body. So you could put a cow there, you could put a human there. We have a human line called Intact Nutrition. And first thing in my head, I said, so what if a bus hit that? What if a car tapped that? What would happen? He says, the whole thing goes out of whack. It's like dominoes. And so if you're not getting all the minerals that you need, trace minerals and regular ionic minerals, then your system, like for instance, tomatoes are the best example of that. It used to be where you'd wait and pick a tomato when it was red. And that meant that the taproot had brought up all the minerals and put it in it, and you get that as a human when you eat it. Then all of a sudden they decided, well, if you pick them green, then all we got to do is they'll give us longer shelf life to get it to the market and so forth. So what happened? They never got the minerals, so they turn red by a gas process. There's no minerals there. So taste a tomato that you know has been grown with minerals and one that you get out of the store, you could taste the difference. So in our garden, we're growing oranges and pears that in Louisiana the size of your fist. That's not meant to be. We're growing watermelons and we're growing flowers. The flowers don't have any bacteria on it. And there's a whole series of pictures you can see on the website under Supreme AG. What Trey and I have been able to find is that this has application everywhere. So I'm talking to sugar mills all over the world and would like to talk to more about it. I don't have the time. And but they're all looking to how do they take this lignin source and make it into something that's edible, because they've tried everything from a seaweed, and that don't work. And they've tried down in Brazil, they tried cactus, and then the cactus got a disease, but it's still not as complete as ours. So if you're a rancher and you want to try something that doesn't cost you a lot and increases your cow's intake of protein, like first thing I get, we were talking about it before we got on with you, is that the first question is, what's your crude protein? Well, you know what? That's really not the question. Question is, what is your cow absorbing? Probably not much. And what do they do at feedlots? They feed them crap and corn. Chickens, they feed the chicken crap to the cows. And so it's really about what you absorb. Our motto was always, it's not what you eat, it's what you absorb. And then my scientist said to me, he said, you know what? You're lying to your customers. I said, why is that? I don't lie to my customers. said, no. He said, it is what you eat. And then it's how you absorb it. And so I changed the whole motto of the company is to that because it's true. Whether you're human or your dog, I mean, your animals at home are suffering. And the one payoff that I get, Clay, is when a human looks at me and they have no hope, all of a sudden they got hope. And it works quick. You know, our human line works really quick. I have people that have gout, and within 24 hours, depending on whether you smoke or not, if you smoke, it can take as much as 3 days, but they get rid of gout. We got a test going on in England that through Innovative UK, which is like their high research facility with our distributor there. And they're studying, it gets rid of eczema. And so they're going to do it. They're going to do a test and they're going to test for that. So,
Yeah. So I got a bunch of questions, kind of follow up on some of what you said there. First of all, is what is bagass?
okay, well,
Aside from something that sounds like I should get my mouth washed out for saying it at,
well, when I came from Detroit down here, somebody said that to me and I said, what'd you say to me? And we shoot people up there for that. But bagasse is crushed sugarcane. It's a French word, and it's everywhere. It's in mountains. And again, as I said earlier, they don't know what to do with it.
So the sugarcane process, you know, basically, if I'm understanding it right, they just cut the sugarcane down in the field, bring it into the plant, and then crush it and squeeze the sugar out of it, right? And it comes out as a liquid, and then it's dried. Is that
basically
correct?
Yeah, then what's left over is like a real fibrous material.
Right. So and that's high in lignin, so it's hard to process, takes lots of protein for an animal to process something that's high in lignin, right?
Well, they don't even like to go around it.
Right.
But when we process it, it doesn't even look the same. And you'll see pictures of it on the website. It doesn't even look the same.
Yeah. And so how and your process involves heat and squeezing it, right? Is that correct?
Actually, you're almost there. Our process is I mix it and I add carob, which if anybody knows their Bible stories, I'll make this short. John the Baptist went in the wilderness, ate locusts and honey. He really ate the locust pod. What is the locust pod? It's carob. It smells like chocolate. So when we're processing, it smells like Starbucks in the plant. And that's why they use it at Hershey's. They're the biggest user of carob. Well, I found other characteristics of that. My next step is to take it over and put it in the press. And the press is double ram press. It's got lots of stuff going on. And I put in what they call NutriMastic, which is a minerals mastic and magnesium and all kinds of stuff that I have made to our spec. And it takes that 146 degree material that comes out of the mixer and turns it into an 88 degree 2,200 pound bale. And it's highly compressed and it has all the minerals and mastic and everything in it. And mastic will actually kill bacteria. So H. pylori, C. pylori, it kills it. And that's why it's been used on dental and other things throughout thousands of years.
So this isn't a fermented product then, correct?
No, it's not a fermented product.
Ask me that question again.
It's not fermented? I said it's not a fermented product.
No, not really.
No. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of like a silage pile. You know, it's all piled up and you cover it and trap the moisture in there, and that generates heat in the fermentation process.
No, but that's an interesting point, though. What we started finding is that as we let it sit there for about 2 weeks, water would come out the bottom. Now, when something's rotting, it smells. And so what we found is that the black water coming from it was actually, there's a study that was done, not in this country, that when lignin breaks down, it creates water. And that water is actually loaded with 38 amino acids, which is incredible. You know what amino acids are used for, almost everything. And so
it's the only thing anybody knows from high school biology. It's the building block of life, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's all kinds of benefits from it that really changes the whole world of cattle and how we feed it. And then, that's kind of the point of it. There's nothing like this in the world. So I think
And
that our process in the United States is going to be, that footprint's going to be all over the world. And that's what Trey and I are working on right now.
the minerals come from the mastic. Is that right? You said it's got the 72 minerals and trace elements in it.
Comes from the Nutramastic, yes.
Yep. And what is that?
Well, Nutramastic is 72 ionic minerals and trace minerals. It also has mastic in it, which is from a specific island in the world that they actually call it Jesus Tears. And then I put magnesium in it, and I put in potassium and selenium. And then it's made in a very specific process. And I had the guy that was making it for me actually died, so I had to go teach a new group. And I'm telling you that because that new group, they wanted a pinch of this, a pinch of that. And I said, no, get rid of all that. I said, I know that's what you learned, but that's not how this works. And so I have them made in 280-gallon drums or totes. And that's what Nutramastic is. So you'll have a version of that in what we call intact digest, and gets rid of acid reflux in about 20 seconds. It gets rid of acid reflux, like I said earlier. And so it's that's what Nutramastic is.
And you said earlier that it was an old process. And is that the mastic is what has been around for a long time that's been used
Well,
all over the
if you
world?
look at it, trap Cs are ancient. That's what's in it. And mastic has been used for thousands of years. It goes back to the Book of Enoch, his grandfather was Adam. And he said there's two things that came from the Garden of Eden that were blessings from God. One of them was the almond, and the other one was the mastic. And when I read that, I thought, crap, I've got that in my product. And then obviously magnesium's in every cell of your body. And so all of these things help your body. And that's why I call it intact. Intact's actually a medical term. It means that your body's intact. So when I go give speeches for the different health food stores that handle our product or anybody, I'll talk to them about it and say, you know what? All that stuff in your store, none of it will work unless your body's intact. And what does that mean? Everything's processing properly. I mean, can you imagine going to a slaughterhouse and they can't sell the livers of the cows for even dog food? That's a shame. That's a shame. And that's because of the bodies of the cows aren't intact. The bodies of the people aren't intact. There is things that, like I was saying, we're studying eczema right now, but your biggest organ in your body is your skin. And so you rub intact digest on your skin, and it starts really healing in a rapid state. So that's what intact means. It means the body is intact. And I think that's the key because our bodies aren't intact. The problem is, it really is the food.
And you mentioned along the way there too that there's less flies on the animals. And when I hear that, I think that this product is helping them stay alkaline. And when you talk about having eczema, I think of people being acid when they have those issues too. So I'm wondering if that's what's going on there, or if you know kind of what the mechanism is there.
Yeah, I do. And that's an excellent question because I asked that same thing from our science department. I said, why? Why is this happening? Because as Trey was saying, you take them around the cows, and sometimes you can't tell what the color of the cow is, and they get pink eye and everything else. And there's something called furfural that comes out when the lignin comes out that is undigested from the cow. And furfural, if furfural is present, the fly will lay its egg. If furfural is not present, then it won't lay its egg. You'll flip those cow pies in like Trey's ranch. They're not there. And so what happened to them? If there's no furfural and furfural comes from lignin, then it must have come from digested lignin that was digested properly. So if the lignin is digested properly and it is a protein source, then the largest protein source, as we discussed, outside of crustacea, then that's great. That tells me that input and output is perfected. I also know that the rumen got so much bacteria in it that the four stomachs really don't do all that they should do. A mastic actually goes in and repairs the rumen and repairs the flesh, gets rid of the bacteria, the bad bacteria. And so now when you start getting down to the bottom two stomachs, the fluids are processed properly. The food is processed properly through the gut. I've even got it where I've got a patent that you can purchase the product off our site that increases the percentage of a heifer getting pregnant, and use all the same tools you do now. Use your syringe and your tube and so forth, but use NutriMastic, or I call it equine intact, and it will help prepare the uterus for pregnancy, and you'll have better percentages. And it really comes down to that simple. You got better percentages, that's great. If you don't have better percentages, don't give it to me. I don't want it. And so that is that portion. So you'll find that everything becomes intact. And so you'll find that even your cows will look shinier, and you'll see that in what we put out in pictures and so forth in videos. The coat is shiny. Why? Because that's protein. And then I don't have to tell you that when you get a big bull on a heifer, there's a lot of them that are young and they get their hips broken. So 70% of the cows are inseminated worldwide now. So I figured that if we can increase the percentage of success without having a bull mount a heifer, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Did I answer your question, by the way? I got it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then kind of what drew you to this? How'd you get started with this product?
Well, you know what? I developed Intact Digest, which is a liquid, and I sell it. You can buy it on Amazon, or you can buy it off our site or whatever, but I sell it all over the world. We now have distributors in Germany and England and on and on. But so I took that, and then I did a reverse takeover on a public company. And that reverse takeover, this company that I took it over had a bad idea, and they needed a new idea. So I bought it. And part that came with it was this big sugar mill, 150-year-old sugar mill. It was one of the biggest employers in South Louisiana. And so when I walked in the door, I said, "Lord, what do you want me to do with this? I'd never seen a sugar mill." And so with a lot of work and listening to a lot of people, meaning that I had one guy that was big in machinery. He said, you come from Detroit, when they want to put a new windshield in or a back windshield, they spend $1 million. Well, probably it's now 5 million or $1 billion. But he says, the farmers and the ranchers, they know what to do. He says, so figure out what you want to do and adapt it to what machinery is available. So I did. And within 90 days, I had a factory that's not like any factory in the world. And I took double ram presses that were made for crushing cans. And so it's not like making making a square bale of hay. This is big time double ram presses. And I took that and I altered it with my technology and my NutriMastic. You just can't spray NutriMastic on a pile of bagasse and expect it to work. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes on. And then I added the mixer, and I added the corrode, and I started adding things that, like I say, I felt fall in the crap and come out with a suit on. But the end result was that the input and the output gave me something that was not like nothing else in the world. And then the first thing that I did is that Trey was there. We went out and started telling people about it. Well, tell me what the USD, what the USD say? Are you approved by the USDA? I said, no, I don't have $2 million to do that. I really don't. I'm just a regular guy that has something nobody else has. And so the difference between 10 years ago and today is that guy that 10 years ago said, what's crude protein? What does USDA say? And today is, you have the data? Yeah, it's got 1,000 pages. You want to read it? And it's growing every day. And they're researching it in a lot of places, including we're researching it. And they'll say, okay, well, as long as you got the data, what's it going to cost me? And when can I get it? Well, so the whole conversation changes, and then we got the 2 test ranches, and then we got, a lot of people that are trying it, and it doesn't take long to show that what we're telling you is absolutely true. The last thing I want is I don't want somebody bull crapping me, and this product creates what we say very quickly, not only in the garden. And I really stress people look at Supreme AG on the site. The pictures are phenomenal, and we're running the same thing up in at their garden up in Southern. And I got to mention one other thing, that we have a product called Equine Intact, and that was the very first thing that I ran into, that you can take a horse and it'll die of tie up. And so what I did is I took if you take Equine Intact and you put it into their feed, uh, it'll take care of tie up in just 3 or 4 days. And I've got that example all throughout the United States. Now, I also found that when you transport a horse, their hydration goes. They get dehydrated big time. Some of them die. You'll see a whole trailer load. This hydrates them phenomenally. So you got hydration, you got tie up is taken care of, and a lot of other bacterias that are taken care of, and you don't have to do anything but put it in their feed. It's like your dog and your cat. Put it in their food. We have a product called Pet Intact, and you put 4 drops for every 40 pounds and put it in their food. In a few days, they're from a different dog. The itching stops. Why? The body's intact. And it's like I want to scream at people sometimes. God made our body to be intact. All these functions should happen, but we don't eat. It's in the food. In our environment. It's the chemicals that we have in our environment. Um, so it's something that Trey and I are really proud of.
Yeah. Trey, how are you guys using the product, and what has been your experience?
I've used the product here for, like I said, like 12 years, and we've used it off and on. A lot of what we do here is score like 1, 2 cows, cheap cows at the auction, and bring them up to, 4s, 5s, 6s, and just spin them a lot like that. Then we also have some of, like the pets that I mentioned earlier that are just the nice lawnmowers that are just fun to have around. And those are the ones that we really have the most testing on, and the ones that we know the most on. I mean, we know all the other ones just because we gain them weight so fast and then we ship them out or whatever. But we use it basically every day unless we're running a test on something or cutting some of them out. Look at this or look at that. And then we have different pastures sectioned off for different things. Like I told you, how we put the cow pies back down. We run fields on tests like that, and would change up different scenarios of when we would crack corn or we'd put hay with it. And, you go 12 years, you got to mix it up a little bit and see what works the best and see some differences. And then also the human line stuff. I've personally used the human line for the same amount of time, 12 years. And that is one of those things that, I can definitely attest that it works very well. But it's one of those things that you just have to either know me or be around, because it's one of those things, not like you can see how much, you can lift or how many posts you can put in the ground on, like, a podcast, but it definitely has a way of increasing how much you can do on a day-to-day basis. Makes you feel really, really good.
Yeah, as
What
far
about
as
what your mom did? What about your mom did with the bull that had that ribbon of bacteria on its coat?
Yeah, we've done a lot of stuff like that for anytime they'll get, because sometimes cows will get caught up in fence, especially during the spring where we're sectioning them off different pastures. And one time we had a Brahma, and I was walking, and she decided that she was going to jump the fence. And I don't know how long she had been there, but she had wallowed out a decent sized hole in the ground. And I was like, well, we've got to get this cow out. But it was in the fence and around all kinds of shrubs and things. Like, well, not only do we have to get it out, but we have to put something around her horns and drag her out. So you're talking about a big, almost 2,000-pound Brahma. And so I get the UTV out, and I got to winch this cow out, cut her out of the fence. And, you would think that a cow would be happy to get up and say, thank you very much, even after she had laid there and wallowed and made a huge hole in the ground. you would think that she would let you like maybe clean her or like feed her and walk her back. No, she was very, very angry. And you could tell that she had enough energy that she was not going to go in any direction that you wanted to go. She was more than willing and had enough energy to like take a whole nother fence down. That was one of those ones you just come back to. But anytime we'll have like a cow like that, that either will let you nurse it or just does, bulls get in fights and they'll hit stuff, knock stuff over. And we always put it on any wounds or anything. Fine for just prevention. And I mean, it really does seem to work. And when you have the time and space for it, why not? So,
Yeah.
and then, like
And
I
as
said,
far
on the
as the
human
feeding
line, I
is
use it all the
concerned,
time.
yeah. And as far as the feeding is concerned, are you guys mixing it at all, or how are you actually getting it to the animals, and kind of how much and how
So normally
often
when we
and
mix
some
it,
of
we'll
those
mix
things?
SGB plus with cracked corn, and we'll do like 85-15 or 80-20, normally just depending on what time of the year it is. And so we feed that every day. And what we'll normally do is we'll let it sit for the day and let it, just kind of sit and mingle in the mixer. And we'll feed it for 2 days, and then we'll keep going on that process. But if we have some that are, we have them set aside in different pens, or we're going to do different things for them. Sometimes we'll also put just the regular intact digest or something in their water, and we'll mix that in, or we'll have some ink wine for different things, especially if you have, because some of them, no matter what you do, there's always going to be some. Like we had a cow that got knocked over in an ice storm. And so we just have to go out there and just pick her up. She's a calf. There's really nothing like super wrong with her, but she's just getting her legs out from under her. So we've been putting that in her water. So, and I think we're going to let her out tomorrow. So she's done a lot better. She's recovered pretty good in the last couple of days. So we use
Yes.
it for things like that.
Would the 85 or 80-20 mixture of cracked corn and SGP plus, would that be 100% of what they're eating on a given day, or is it just a supplement
On most
of what?
days, they're always out to, most of them always have pasture to go to, but there are some occasions where, yes, that is all they're going to eat. Like if we have some sectioned off, we're about to get them a little bit fatter and then send them off to go get weighed and, off to the auction. Yes, there is some like that, but we'll only keep those there for like a week, maybe two. That there's always grass room available. And, sometimes we use hay, but most of the time it's just SGB plus, and then they go forage for grass or hay or just like small stuff like that. But it is mostly the feed.
Yeah, Mark, what's the process as far as getting the product, and how is that being handled?
Well, one of the when I first opened up, I'll make this short. All I could do was ship loose in a 90-yard dump trailer. Well, tell you what, I've been trucking for a long time. I've got my CDL, and it's all about the backhauls. So, and how much you're taking and so forth. So the dump trailers didn't work for me. So what I had to do is I had to come up with a way that I could ship and take advantage of 50,000 pounds on a flatbed truck. And so I did. I developed a bagging system, and now I've got a new machine coming in that will actually wire bale it, and I can put 50,000 pounds on a flatbed truck. Cost per pound goes way down at that point. So the process is that you can order a truckload, you can order it loose in super sacks. If you order a bale of 2,200 pounds will cost you about 100. If you order a super sack, it'll cost you about 85. You want to order a Supreme AG, the same bale price goes the same price for the super sack. Then I also have one that I ship a lot to people that just want to try like a 5-gallon pail. And I ship that for 55 out. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, just kind of wondering what the logistics of it look like as far as getting it and some of
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a interim period because I got a new machine coming in, and I've got one guy that wants 62 truckloads a week, and he mixes himself, and he mixes for dairies and for just everybody. One of the things I started running into is that a lot of these guys in Kansas and Oklahoma and portions of the country use rice hull. And when Trey and I were going to to India, they quit selling rice hull or rice of any kind to anywhere outside of the country. And I said, you guys going to keep doing that? And he said, oh, yeah, it's been going on for about 3 months, which right now it's probably 2 years. So, and the reason for rice hull being more expensive now is that that's what they're telling me, is that the ranchers aren't, or the farmers aren't growing it because it's got a bacterial problem. And so the crops aren't as successful as they should be. So everyone is a business, and so it's a perfect time to substitute our product in there. And not only the fact you're going to get better weight gain and cheaper cost to feed, that's the answer to the question.
Yeah, very good. Well, where should people go to get a hold of you guys and find out more about the product?
If you want to order it, or you can order it at 1-800-4130. You get one of our salespeople. If you want to order it online, you go to impactfusionbrands.com and you can order it online. And that's as simple as it goes. I mean, I bill you out through QuickBooks. And so it goes right to you. You can. I don't see your credit card or your ACH or anything. And if you want to order the Intact Digest line or the Intact Endurance line, which is for athletes, or the Pet Intact, that can also be done on site, and it ships out the same day.
Well, very good. Mark, Trey, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
you.
Have a good day.
Really appreciate Mark and Trey taking the time to share about what they've been seeing as results and the test ranch that Trey is a part of there, and all of the different benefits that they've been seeing on their product. Coming up next on the Working Cows podcast, I'll either be sharing with you an episode that I did with Carl Jensen and Bill Eastman from the South Dakota Ag Land Trust, or my conversation with Crockett Carruthers we recorded after the episode where I was on his podcast. We did one of my podcast as well in the studio there in Texas, and we talked to him about what it takes to be a successful day working cowboy. Either way, I think you'll enjoy it, and we'll see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.